Have you ever noticed how the weight of the world seems to press down on your shoulders, not all at once, but slowly, insidiously, like a shadow creeping across the floor? You wake up tired, even after sleep. Your mind races with worries you can't name. Your body aches with a tension that never quite leaves, and yet you carry on as if this is just how life must be. But what if I told you this isn't living? What if I told you that every moment you spend drowning in stress, you are dying? Not suddenly, but piece by piece, breath by breath. Schopenhauer saw this truth with terrifying clarity. Life is a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom, and stress is the silent force that accelerates the swing. Imagine for a moment a different existence, one where you are not ruled by the relentless demands of others, by the endless to-do lists, by the gnawing fear of not being enough. Imagine a life where you step back, where you refuse to let the chaos of the world dictate your inner peace. What would happen? The answer is simple, yet profound. The world would panic, because stress is not just your burden. It is the leash others use to lead you. Your exhaustion, your anxiety, your constant availability. These are the chains you've mistaken for virtue. Schopenhauer understood that most suffering is self-inflicted. We cling to illusions of control, to the belief that if we just work harder, worry more, please everyone, we will find relief. But the opposite is true. The more you react, the more you feed the cycle. The more you say yes, the more you vanish into the expectations of others. And yet, when you stop, when you withdraw, when you refuse to play the game, something extraordinary happens. The world, so accustomed to your suffering, suddenly finds itself unbalanced. Why? Because stress is not just a personal affliction, it is a social contract. You are expected to be tired, to be overwhelmed, to be always on the brink of collapse. Because a stressed mind is a compliant mind. A stressed heart is an easily manipulated heart. But the moment you step away, the moment you reclaim your silence, your stillness, your right to exist without apology, that is the moment you become dangerous. Think about it. Who benefits from your exhaustion? Who profits from your endless giving? Who grows stronger while you grow weaker? The answers will unsettle you, because stress is not an accident, it is a design that keeps you too distracted to question, too drained to resist, too broken to realize you are being robbed of your very life. But there is another way. Schopenhauer, the philosopher of darkness, also pointed to the light. The path to liberation begins with one radical act, the refusal to participate, the refusal to let stress be the price of your existence. This is not selfishness, it is survival. It is the recognition that your energy is finite, that your peace is sacred, that your life is not a currency to be spent on the whims of others. So I ask you now, how much longer will you let stress steal from you? How much more of yourself will you sacrifice before you say, enough? The choice is yours. But remember, every moment you spend in stress is a moment you do not live. And time, unlike stress, does not forgive. He silences you. Fear is the very thing that will save you. Think of the last time you truly paused. Not to scroll, not to distract yourself, but to simply be. How did it feel? Like a betrayal, perhaps. Like you were wasting time, like you were falling behind. This is the lie stress tells you, that stillness is laziness, that peace is passivity. But Schopenhauer knew better. He saw that the mind, when freed from constant agitation, begins to see the world as it truly is. And what is that truth? That most of what you stress over does not matter. That the opinions you chase, the validations you crave, the emergencies you rush to solve, they are illusions, shadows on the wall of a cave you've mistaken for reality. The more you run, the more the shadows grow. But the moment you stop, the moment you sit in the darkness and let your eyes adjust, You see the chains around your wrists, and you realize they were never locked. Why then do we stay bound? Because stress is addictive. It gives you the illusion of purpose, the rush of urgency, the high of being needed. But like all addictions, it drains you. It leaves you hollow, a shell of a person going through the motions of a life that isn't yours. And the world encourages this, because a stressed population is a controlled population. But you are waking up. You are starting to see the strings. And that is why this is so hard, because the moment you question stress, you question everything. Your job, your relationships, the very structure of your days. And that terrifies the part of you that clings to familiarity, even if that familiarity is killing you. So let me ask you this. What is the cost of your stress? Not in vague terms, but in real, tangible losses. The mornings you woke up dreading the day. The nights you spent too exhausted to think, to create, to love. The ideas you abandoned because you were too tired to pursue them. The person you could have been, if only you'd had the energy to try. These are not small things. These are the stolen fragments of your soul. And Schopenhauer would tell you, no philosophy, no wealth, no success is worth this theft. There is a reason stress feels like a slow death, because it is. Every time you suppress your needs, every time you ignore your limits, every time you sacrifice your well-being for the sake of getting through, you are rehearsing your own demise. Not in a dramatic, all-at-once way, but in the quiet, invisible erosion of your vitality. Schopenhauer called this the will to live turning against itself. The very force that should drive you to thrive instead becomes the engine of your exhaustion. You chase survival at the expense of living. You mistake endurance for strength. And in doing so, you betray the most fundamental truth of existence. That life is not meant to be endured. It is meant to be felt. Think of the last time you felt truly alive. Was it in a moment of stress? Or was it in a moment of presence, of connection, of unburdened joy? The answer is obvious, and yet we live as if the opposite were true. But here is the secret. Stress doesn't want you to know. You have power. Not the power to control the world, but the power to choose your relationship to it. The power to say, this ends now. Subtle reminder. If this resonates with you, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find this message. The world will resist your awakening. It will call you lazy, selfish, unrealistic. It will tell you that stress is the price of success, of responsibility, of being a good person. But these are lies. And Schopenhauer, the patron saint of harsh truths, would laugh at them. Success? What is success if you are too numb to enjoy it? Responsibility? What is responsibility if it costs you your health, your relationships, your very self? Goodness? What is goodness if it requires the destruction of your soul? You are being sold a myth that suffering is noble, that exhaustion is a badge of honor. But ask yourself, who profits from this myth? Who benefits when you believe that your worth is measured in your burnout? The answer will shock you. Now comes the hardest question of all. What if you stopped? What if, just for one day, you refused to stress? Not in denial, not in avoidance, but in defiance. What would happen? Would the world end? Or would it reveal itself to be far less demanding than you'd feared? This is the experiment Schopenhauer invites you to try. The experiment of your own liberation. The experiment begins with a single breath, a pause long enough to let the world's demands crash against you like waves against a cliff, and then recede, powerless. This is the first rebellion, to stand still while everything screams at you to move. Schopenhauer knew this stillness was revolutionary, not because it changes the world, but because it changes you. Imagine a life where stress no longer dictates your worth, where your value isn't tied to how much you endure, but to how deeply you exist. What would you lose? The approval of people who profit from your exhaustion? The illusion of control that keeps you running in circles? Or would you finally gain the one thing stress has stolen from you? Yourself? Here's the truth they don't want you to see. Stress is a cage with an open door. You've just been trained to fear the outside, to mistake the ache of the bars for the security of walls. But the moment you step out, the moment you refuse to flinch at the chaos, you realize the door was never locked. Schopenhauer called this the denial of the will. Not surrender, but liberation. The choice to stop feeding the machine of endless wanting, striving, fearing. The courage to let life be what it is, rather than what you've been told it should be. But the world will retaliate. It will call your peace laziness, your boundaries selfishness, your silence arrogance. Why? Because a system built on stress cannot tolerate those who refuse to burn. So let me ask you, who are you without your stress? Strip away the exhaustion, the rush, the constant proving. Who remains? That is the person you've been burying under a mountain of shoulds. That is the life stress has been silencing. The path forward isn't easy. It requires you to stare into the void of your own irrelevance, to realize the world will spin without your suffering. But in that void, something extraordinary awaits. The freedom to live without apology,